Okay guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Now today we have a pretty important video because this will help you with the major upcoming update coming for ARK Survival Ascended, which of course is Unreal Engine 5.7. If everything is still on track, we're expecting to be getting this update next month, and as we're coming to the end of March, I wanted to give you guys all the information of what you need to prepare for before this update, as we experienced it already with 5.5, and you may be experiencing 5.7 for the first time, or you might have just forgotten what you need to prepare for within Unreal Engine 5.7 launch. These upgrades are fantastic for the game because obviously it improves performance, and Studio Wildcard have actually named this the Magic Bullet update for the game, and the biggest performance upgrade we're going to get in the entire of 2026. So hopefully this is true, because sometimes I take things Wildcard say with a pinch of salt. But anyway, we're going to be talking through all of this. Obviously, Studio Wildcard just recently were talking about Unreal Engine 5.7 in the post from 80 level, which we've read through. But we're going to be beginning with what you need to prepare for to avoid any issues on launch day. Okay, so what is Unreal Engine 5.7? Well, it is a new upgrade to ARK system, and we will go into the details from Jeremy in the conversation again here and what's happening with Unreal Engine 5.7, but I need to first go into the important kind of warnings of what you need to check out for when the launch day does come around. And the first things first, is your mods. Mods with Unreal Engine updates are one of the most important parts of the game. This applies for single player, this applies for your servers, anything like that. Mods are super important. Now 5.5 went pretty smooth, but the reason why you must check your mods is that there will be a list of mods that Studio Wildcard will cook up with 5.7. Now this doesn't mean that every single mod will be able to run with 5.7 on launch. Normally how it works is the most popular mods will get cooked up first by Studio Wildcard. So over on the LoadedCrysis cluster, I know loads of you guys play there, you know that we try to stick to the most popular mods possible. We always see some really cool ones, but you have to be careful with what you add, because Studio Wildcard, when they update this, if we have a mod that's faulty and isn't getting recooked straight away with the update, it will leave you in a restart loop on your server. So if you run a server with your friends, if you want to actually take a look at what you've got so far, it might be worth potentially, just for the time being, phasing something out if it doesn't look like it gets updated much, which is where the important part comes in. You must check to see how active the mod developer actually is, whether he updates his mod often. Maybe check if the mod developer has a Discord, and you may want to go into their Discord and join in, because this is very, very important, and to see if they're going to be ready with the recook. Now, Studio Wildcard will most likely contact and give these modders that have some of the most popular ones out there, the information on recooking their mod into 5.7, so it's ready as soon as the update goes live. And most likely your mod developer in their Discord, if they get that information, will let you know there, so you know that your mod's going to be safe. 9 times out of 10, a mod with over like 1 million downloads is going to be okay, but ones that are a lot smaller might suffer on day one of the patch. Now, the reason I go so in-depth into the mod side of things is because I know a lot of people hold a lot of items into mods. Now, we use now Cyberstructures over on the LoadedCrysis cluster, and we're very comfortable that that mod is going to be okay. But if you're using a storage mod of a slightly less popular storage kind of mod or something like that, please be careful, because I don't want you guys to have any issues and then not just getting into your server or your single player, but potentially that maybe the mod creator doesn't want to go ahead with 5.7, which would mean you would lose all your stuff. So I do tend to recommend to people to be a little bit careful. I think it's always a risk using modded stuff anyway. There's always that risk, but just making sure that when an Unreal Engine launch comes up, that's very, very important. Now, if you are running a server for Unreal Engine 5.7, please ensure that you give your servers time to get the patch. A lot of people, I have had it myself happen, want to get the update as soon as possible and want to push the patch live so you can get your servers up, but unfortunately sometimes the patch isn't there, and if you're updating servers at different times and you're trying to spam refresh or update as fast as possible, this could actually cause you future issues. So it's always good to wait that little bit extra time. If you see the update go live, you see that your game has the patch, that doesn't mean your servers are ready to be updated, but at least you know you've got the patch. I would say always give it like a quite a little, like, you know, it doesn't have to be like an hour. If you want to be super safe, you can go for that, but just give your servers that little bit extra time, then press that restart button. Once you see it saying you're updated installing, you know you've got the patch, and you know you can just leave it to do its thing, and it will install the new 5.7 update. But that's very important, because I do see a lot of people run into server issues when I don't, you know, it's understandable when people get you know, impatient with it, but it's the fact is you just have to, because I've seen a lot of people run into major issues because they've constantly spammed the server restart, which again can cause corruption. So just be a little bit patient there. Okay, so one very important thing is please prepare for the size of this download. Now, Unreal Engine 5.5, if I'm correct, on PC was around about 39 gigabytes of download. I can't actually say right now what I expect this update to be, because I really don't know. But all I always say to players is, for an Unreal Engine update, make sure you've got the space to download, because you don't want to cause yourself any issues with starting the download, it corrupts, and then you have to end up reinstalling the whole game. There's always kind of, sadly with the world of ARK, and this isn't just ARK by the way, this is a lot of games, that it's very easy to corrupt files if you don't have space. And when it comes to running a game like ARK, it is massive. And if you want every single map downloaded, especially, you know, if you're on the cluster and you want to play on every single map, because you can now have the choice to uninstall certain maps to save space. But if you do have the entire game of ARK Survival Ascended installed, it is massive. ARK has always been known to be one of the, literally, if not the biggest downloaded game in the world, not in the sense of how the download size. It's always been crazy. When anyone's ever downloaded ARK, they all say the same thing: how big is the game? And that's again something you have to prepare. You don't realize how much space it's taking up on your console or your PC, so please make sure you have got a lot of space available for this update, which is coming in April. Okay, so we're going to dive into the post here, which was from Jeremy, where he talks about Unreal Engine 5.7, so you can have a little bit of an understanding if you don't know what it is. So Jeremy, the co-founder, co-creative director and lead designer, this week announced some details about where ARK Survival Ascended is going, and they talked about the new map coming out in June, another one in December, the world creator, which will probably be extremely interesting. So today I won't give you the marketing speak, I'll get into the nuts and bolts, and the reason is we actually have real nuts and bolts to talk about. Plans are easy, everybody has plans, but as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and the same applies to games. So we read all of this, but the important part is Jeremy says one of the less exciting things is that we're upgrading ARK Survival Ascended, which is our live ARK game, to the latest version of Unreal Engine. It's not glamorous, every game eventually has to do it. When you're working with a live service game, occasionally you have to take the entire project and migrate it forward. With Unreal Engine specifically, Epic releases these huge updates. You can cherry pick individual features, but that becomes risky when the engine changes significantly and features become tightly integrated. At that point, upgrading the entire engine becomes necessary if you want the latest improvements, especially for a game that's been running for multiple years. ASA has already been operating for 2.5 years, so it's time again. The cost is development time. You have to basically regression test the entire game and assume that everything is broken for Unreal Engine 5.7. And then they say, makes sense, I'm sure often a lot of things are really broken. And Jeremy says exactly, but what players get in return is improved performance. We're moving from Unreal Engine 5.5 to 5.7, which includes a lot of major performance improvements. Rendering rendering thread improvements are part of it, but the biggest improvement is virtualized culling of nanite meshes. Previously, nanite worked like this. If the mesh was in the scene, it rendered, even if it was barely visible. but there was still an overhead. Dom, get better at reading. Now, Epic has introduced a system that breaks nanite meshes into voxels. Depending on which voxels are visible, the engine can compute far less of the mesh. That's especially beneficial in scenes with lots of overlapping meshes. It's essentially a much more efficient way of determining what the engine doesn't need to process. For example, we tested heavily forested and jungle scenes with lots of overlapping meshes and saw massive improvements. There's basically no accuracy cost, it's pure performance win, and honestly, it probably should have been there from day one. So that is something that a lot of ARK players have talked about for a long time now, and it was the fact that everyone knows that ARK Survival Ascended launched in a very, very unfinished state. And it was sad to see. It was sad to see because it was a great idea before they turned it to ARK Survival Ascended. The initial plan at the start was to launch ARK Survival Evolved with a free Unreal Engine 5 update to the new version. But this is where things are upsetting because I think that was Studio Wildcard's vision. But Snail Games' vision is a lot different to Studio Wildcard's, where Snail Games I know there's no concrete proof that it was all Snail Games behind the scenes, but within the tweet we saw from Jeremy, who was the co-founder, his initial plan was to do that. And I think then Snail make the business decisions in with the game, because they obviously always work on the products. That's where you see the product roadmaps and everything like that. And unfortunately, Studio Wildcard has no place in it. And I do think sometimes, well, a lot of the time, they have had to take the stick. I'm not saying that they're perfect any way. They delay a lot of stuff, and their company production has always been very slow, and they've kind of never improved, I don't think, to the way they could have yet. They've definitely made improvements. I will back them there, but I think Snail sometimes can drag Wildcard into the mud with them because they make certain business decisions, which is obviously what happened with Ascended. Now, whatever's happened, that's the past now. There's no point talking about that because we are where we are now with Ascended, and I do think we've got a fun product. We're a lot more, the player count is the highest it's ever been for a while, and we've got loads of new content to come to it, and I'm really excited to see where we are. But the game, it doesn't hide the fact that the game launched in a very unfinished state, and we have to hope that this Unreal Engine 5.7 is going to take ASA to a place we all really were hoping the game was going to be when ARK Survival Ascended launched. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. The next major update, as you would have seen earlier, is releasing March 31st, which is it's next week. So that's very exciting. The Acrocanthosaurus will be launching, and I'll be preparing to make some breakdown videos on the Acrocanthosaurus. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.